The garage that was never mine, a tale of family, favoritism, and finding my voice. There are moments in life when you feel something isn't quite right, but you can't put your finger on it. It's like walking into a room and sensing that something's off, but everything looks perfectly fine. Maybe it's a picture on the wall that's slightly crooked, or the way someone says something but it doesn't sit right with you. That's how it was for me growing up in that house. It wasn't loud or dramatic at first. It wasn't some big family argument or confrontation. It was in the little things. The small moments I couldn't explain away. I felt it in the way my parents looked at me sometimes, or the way they never seemed to ask if I was okay. There was always this quiet tension, like a puzzle where one piece didn't quite fit, but you couldn't tell which one was wrong unless you stared long enough. I was 12 when I first noticed it, when I first understood that something wasn't right. We had just moved into a new house, a bigger house, which my parents said was a good thing for all of us. They told me it was an upgrade, a fresh start. And maybe it was. But for me, it was also the beginning of realizing how little my space, my place meant. Charlie, my mom, Lena, said with that tone she used when she was trying to sound casual, but you could tell it was anything but. "You'll be living in the garage now." I remember standing there, blinking at her, trying to make sense of it. A garage. Not even a room in the house, but a cold, dimly lit garage. The space was big, sure. It had a door that opened into the backyard, so it wasn't totally isolated. It would be close to the kitchen, and I could have my own space. At first, it didn't seem like a huge deal. I was the older one, the one who should understand the need for privacy and time alone. I could handle it, right? But as soon as I walked through the door into that garage, something shifted. The floor was rough, the walls were bare, and there was the smell, a mix of old wood and dust. This wasn't a room. It wasn't even close. My younger brother, Milo, got 2 whole rooms to himself. One for sleeping, the other for playing. They said it was because Milo needed more space for his things. And maybe they were right. But how was that fair? Why was his stuff more important than mine? As I sat on the cold floor of my new room, trying to make it my own, I couldn't shake the feeling that my space was nothing more than an afterthought. It wasn't just that I was in the garage, it was how they treated it. How they treated me. It wasn't just about the room, it was about being pushed aside. I wasn't sure how to explain it then, but I felt like I was invisible. There was a difference. A line between me and Milo. And I was on the wrong side of it. At 12, I didn't have the words for it. I didn't know what to call it, but I could feel it. It was there, hanging in the air. Something wasn't right. Something was missing. And I wasn't the one who was going to get it fixed. It's funny how quickly a small discomfort can turn into something you can't ignore. At first, I thought I could just deal with the garage. I was older, more mature, right? I could handle it. But as the weeks passed, the coldness of that space started to sink in. I'd lie in bed at night, trying to sleep with the hum of the garage door in my ears. The flickering light from a single bulb above me did nothing to make the place feel like home. It was dark, damp, and so quiet, too quiet. Meanwhile, inside the house, I could hear Milo laughing, playing, and living in his 2 rooms. Every time I passed by, the sight of his double setup, the bed with its colorful blankets, the easel and paints carefully arranged in his playroom, felt like a punch to the gut. How was this fair? Why was he getting everything while I was stuck in the shadows? I couldn't take it anymore. So one afternoon, I found my mom in the kitchen, busy chopping vegetables as usual. She always seemed so consumed with making dinner, so I figured it was the perfect time to ask. I took a deep breath, trying to sound casual, as if it didn't matter that I was about to ask for something that should have been mine to begin with. "Mom, do you think I could move into one of the extra rooms in the house?" I asked, my voice almost too soft, hoping it wouldn't sound like a demand. She didn't even look up. "Charlie, we've talked about this before. You have your space. The garage is perfect for you, you know that. But it's dark and cold in there, and I can hear the garage door creaking all night long," I said, trying not to let my frustration show. "Milo has 2 rooms. Why can't I have just one?" She stopped chopping for a moment and finally looked at me. The kitchen was quiet, and I could see the shift in her expression. She looked tired. "Charlie, you know how important Milo's art is to him. His creativity needs room to grow. He has special needs, and we need to create the right environment for him." Special needs. The word stung more than I expected. I had heard that phrase before, but this time it felt different. It felt like an excuse, like a way to justify why Milo deserved 2 rooms while I got the cold, dark corner of the house. I stood there, feeling the weight of her words press down on me. Special needs. I didn't have special needs. Why didn't my needs count? I tried to speak again, but my throat felt tight, like I couldn't form the words. I felt small, invisible. My mom just sighed, wiping her hands on the dish towel, and gave me that tired smile. "You've got your space, Charlie. It's good for you. Think of it as your little retreat. Retreat. It didn't feel like a retreat. It felt like a punishment. I didn't argue. What was the point? She wasn't going to change her mind. It wasn't like she could see what I was feeling anyway. I turned and left the kitchen, not sure whether to be angry or just resigned to the fact that this was my life now. The garage was my place, and that was all I was ever going to get. Before I share what happened next, the moment I couldn't keep it all in anymore, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button because trust me, this story is just getting started. The feeling of being stuck only grew stronger. Every time I passed by Milo's 2 rooms, it was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't escape the way my family treated me, like I was invisible, like I didn't matter as much as Milo. But it was only after that conversation with my mom that the weight of it truly settled in. I wasn't just in a different room. I wasn't just in the garage. I was being treated like I didn't deserve the same space, the same respect. And that was harder to swallow than anything else. After spending months away at college, I thought things might be different when I came home. I'd figured that maybe, just maybe, my absence would change something. Maybe my parents would see that I wasn't just the good kid, the one who silently did what he was told. Maybe they would finally see me, really see me. But I was wrong. The moment I walked through the front door, it was like nothing had changed. Milo was still the center of everything. His art was all anyone talked about. Milo's latest pieces. Milo's upcoming art show. Milo's talent. It was as if my presence didn't matter at all. I slipped into the house unnoticed, like I always did. Milo was in his room, surrounded by his endless canvases, while my parents beamed with pride over every brushstroke he made. I had barely unpacked when Mom came rushing into the living room, her voice practically glowing. "Charlie, you won't believe the new art Milo's been working on. He's really starting to get recognized, you know? There's an art gallery that wants to feature his work soon." I nodded, trying to mask the frustration building inside me. The words art gallery felt like daggers. Not because I didn't care about Milo's success, I did, but because all of it seemed to keep reinforcing the same narrative. Milo was important. Milo was special. Milo's needs came first. And I was just there. I stayed silent, biting my tongue. I had learned to keep my feelings buried over the years, but something inside me snapped when I heard Mom continue, "He's really blossoming, Charlie. I just know he's going to do amazing things in the art world." That was it. It was like a dam breaking, all those years of feeling invisible crashing over me in a single wave. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I couldn't stand being the silent one, the one who kept going along with everything because it was easier. But not anymore. I turned to my mom, the frustration in my chest making my voice sharp. "You always talk about Milo like he's the only one who matters. You always focus on his success, his art, his needs. What about me, huh? What about what I've done? Why does it always have to be about him?" Mom looked taken aback, her smile faltering as she looked at me. For the first time in years, I felt like I had her full attention. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me anymore. My years of silence had turned into years of bitterness, and now it was time to confront the truth. "You've spent my whole life making sacrifices, pushing me aside. I've had to pretend it was okay to be the one left out. I've had to accept living in a garage while Milo got everything. All I've ever heard is how special he is, how important his needs are, but no one's ever bothered to ask what I need." I took a step forward, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "I'm tired, Mom. Tired of being the good kid who doesn't ask for anything. I'm not going to stay quiet anymore." The words hit her harder than I expected. She stood there, blinking as if she couldn't process what I was saying. And that's when I realized how long I had kept all of this inside me. How long I had been silenced by the narrative they created, the narrative where Milo was always the priority. For the first time, I saw the cracks in their perfect picture. I wasn't just angry. I was liberated. I wasn't going to be the person they could just push aside anymore. I was done being the invisible sibling. As the silence hung thick between us, Milo walked into the room, oblivious to the tension in the air. He stood there, looking between me and Mom, his usual carefree attitude seeming out of place in the midst of the storm I had just unleashed. "What's going on?" Milo asked, his voice low. I turned to him, no longer holding back. "You don't get it, do you? You've never had to fight for anything. Everything's just been handed to you. You don't see what it's like to always be the second choice, the afterthought." "Well, I'm done. I'm done being treated like I don't matter." Milo's face softened, but the confusion was still there. "Charlie, I didn't." "Stop," I interrupted, feeling the weight of every moment I had buried deep inside me. "This isn't about you, Milo. It's about me. It's about me finally standing up for myself." And in that moment, I knew I had made the decision I'd been avoiding for so long. I wasn't going to let my family's favoritism define me anymore. It was time for me to take control. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. This wasn't just about space in the house, it was about taking space in my own life. I wasn't going to be the sacrificial sibling any longer. Before I share how everything changed after that night, I want to hear from you. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you felt invisible, where you were overlooked for someone else's needs? Drop a comment below and let me know. Because this story, this moment of change, is far from over. It's strange how life can throw a curveball when you least expect it. One minute I was living my life, trying to distance myself from everything that had happened, and the next minute, I was pulled right back into the chaos. The storm hit fast, a Category 4 hurricane that tore through the city with an unrelenting force. The news was everywhere. Flood warnings, power outages, broken trees, and flooded streets. It was only a matter of time before my parents called. Sure enough, the text came the next day. Hudson, please, we really need your help. The house is badly damaged. Can you come? We're stuck here. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I'd spent so long keeping my distance from them, from that house, from all the memories. But I knew deep down that I couldn't just turn my back. So I packed a bag, grabbed my coat, and flew back home. It wasn't a home anymore, though. Not really. Not in the way I remembered. When I walked through the front door, everything was different. The hurricane had done its damage. The lower floors were flooded, and the furniture was scattered, debris everywhere. My parents were huddled in the living room, looking frazzled but holding it together. Milo was sitting in the corner, sketching away in his notebook, as oblivious to the world around him as always. Melanie, my mom, looked up when she saw me. She gave me that smile, the one that always felt a little too forced. Hudson, thank you for coming. I know this is a lot, but we really need your help. I nodded, keeping my thoughts to myself. Help, what did that even mean? I could already feel the tension building. The years of frustration, the quiet resentment, the years of being pushed aside. All of it rushed back. It was like I was stepping into the same role I'd played before, the invisible one. But this time it was different. This time I wasn't going to just give in. I couldn't stand to be that person anymore. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you need? Melanie hesitated, glancing around the room before her eyes fell on me. Well, the house is pretty much unlivable. And with the repairs taking time, we're wondering if you could let us stay here, just until everything's fixed. I stared at her, the words sinking in. The past came flooding back, like a dam had finally broken. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading. They were asking to move in with me. I had to make them understand. I wasn't the same person I used to be. The quiet one, the one who didn't ask for anything, the one who made all the sacrifices. I wasn't that person anymore, and they needed to know that. I stood up straighter, feeling the weight of my decision settle over me. You can stay, I said, my voice firm, but only under my terms. Melanie blinked, clearly surprised by the shift in my tone. What do you mean? She asked, her voice soft. I took a deep breath, letting the words hang in the air for a moment before speaking again. I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm not going to be the one who gives up everything for you and Milo. You want to stay here? Fine. But you're staying in the garage. That's where you'll live. There was a long silence. I could feel the shock in the room, the disbelief. Milo, who had been quietly sketching, looked up, confusion written across his face. Wait, what? You're kidding, right? I met his eyes, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to say what I was thinking. I'm not kidding, Milo. I spent years living in that garage, and it's time you see what it was like for me. You'll stay in the space that was my space. The space I was shoved into because it wasn't good enough for anyone else. You want to see what it felt like? Now you will. Melanie's face twisted with a mix of confusion and hurt. Hudson, this isn't the time for this, she said, stepping forward. We need to focus on getting the house fixed. We need to pull together. No, I interrupted, my voice cutting through her words. We need to focus on this. You've been treating me like I didn't matter for years. You've given Milo everything, and I've gotten nothing. I'm done being the one who just accepts it. It's time you understand what it feels like to be overlooked. The room fell silent. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had control. I wasn't the one stuck in the background, always giving in, always taking the back seat. No, this time I was in charge. I was taking my power back. I'll help with the repairs, I added, my voice quieter now but still strong. But this is the last time I let you walk all over me. Melanie stood there for a moment, her expression unreadable. I could see her trying to process what had just happened, but I wasn't backing down. Finally, she sighed, the fight leaving her. Fine, she said, her voice resigned. We'll make it work. And just like that, the rules had shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being pushed around. I had set the terms. I had reclaimed my space. When they moved into the garage, the irony wasn't lost on me. They were finally in my space, the space that had once been nothing more than an afterthought. And I felt free. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing in my own truth, no longer living in the shadow of my brother or my parents' expectations. This was my victory, my moment of reclamation, and I wasn't ever going to let anyone take that away from me again.